Okay, I know the season's just over. I know, especially if you watch my channel all the time, you're like, Brian has lost it. I'm just asking the question. Clemson football, can, will, can they win a national championship in 2025? I'm talking about legitimately. I'm not talking about like all the other teams get caught up in some type of Ponzi scheme and they're all incarcerated and Clemson ends up having to play like Akron. I'm talking about really, can they do this? I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Happy Sunday to you, January the 5th. If you're watching this in the future, well, you'll know because I just gave you the date. I hope everyone's doing well. It's getting cold here in the upstate of South Carolina. Rumors of snow coming up this weekend all around us. It's just absolutely crazy. If you like talking college football, Clemson football, a little bit of the local forecast, and you like supporting local media, I say local. I don't know why I said local. That makes no sense because if you're watching me and you're in Arizona, it's not local. Anyway, independent media. Good grief. I hope you will subscribe. I do appreciate it. It's free. I just crossed over 7,000 subscribers. That's all because of y'all. Still, a ton of you have not subscribed who watch me consistently. I hope you will. I appreciate it. If you've watched my channel, and this is a spoiler alert for those of you who are new, if you watch my channel consistently, you know that I love my Tigers, but I'm one of those guys that just because I love you doesn't mean I will lie to you. I know it goes against the grain of fandom. It goes against the grain of friendship and family. You lie to those who you love the most. I don't believe that. In fact, not only do I think it's wimpy, I think that it's deceiving. I don't think it's ethical, and I think you're not as good of a fan or as good of a person as you think you are. But hey, to each their own. So I've been pretty doggone hard on Clemson. I've been hard on Clemson since about 2018 when I noticed that there was a lack of intensity on the sideline when they had all that talent. But you couldn't tell anyone anything. Why? Because they were still winning. That talent was still overriding the coaching. You moved on into 2021. And then you started to hear the mantra of, well, you can't win them all, but we're still a good football team. You got into 2022 and you started to notice we really have a problem here. But then again, we're just a few years removed from the national championship. Then you got into 2023 and then all hell broke loose. You get into this year, it was bookended by losses, but you still won 10 games, a conference championship, and made the college football playoff. You lost by 14. Why would I come on here in my right mind and know I'm not medicated and know I'm not drunk and ask the legitimate question, can Clemson win the national championship? Now, if you look at the title, I believe it asks the question, will Clemson, let me look at my thumbnail, will 2025 Clemson win a championship? Now, let me be completely and totally transparent. I don't know. You're like, duh. A better question is, can they? Like, legitimately. We're not talking about Bobby Dodd philosophy of anyone can beat anyone on any given Saturday. Well, maybe that's true to a majority of the point, but the problem is that is considering upsets happening, right? Like anyone can upset anyone. That's really the gist of it. But if you're having to rely on someone blowing a hypothetical 21-point lead against Syracuse so you can get into the conference championship and then have a true freshman hit a 56-yard field goal to beat a team that you just blew a 17-point loss to, who would later lose by 28 to, Penn State. There's a lot of luck involved there. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about downright talent. Can Clemson win a national championship or at least legitimately compete for one in 2025? 4 minutes and 35 seconds in, I'll answer the question. It depends. Talent on the field, absolutely. Let's talk about who's coming back. Now, over the past 2 weeks, we've heard from a lot of players who could have hit the portal and made a lot of money. They could have went to other schools and made more money. And don't you ever get caught into the culture talk so much that you float away from reality. When you begin to get millions of dollars involved, people's mind can change. And by the way, that doesn't make them bad people. The only way it makes them bad people is if they start doing unethical things and victimizing others. It's a job. I know it's college sports and it doesn't supposed to be a job and it's supposed to be amateur, but those days are gone. You should have known those days were gone as soon as the first advertisement was seen at a stadium. They were gone. Gone. But TJ Parker said he's coming back. Woods is coming back. Cade Klubnik coming back. Antonio Williams coming back. Blake Miller and Tristan Lee coming back. And so far up to this point, almost everyone that played significant time this year, almost every starter that Clemson had on both sides of the football, except for a few, are coming back. So let's talk about some of the players who are leaving. And let's talk about the players who are leaving due to, let me see right here. I had this article pulled up. Who are leaving due to eligibility. Or because they've played their time at Clemson, they're saying, hey, we're going to the NFL. We're leaving, we're going to the NFL, or our time is up. Now, I'll talk about transfers in just a second, but Aiden Swanson, Paul Tyson, R.J. Mickens, Jake Brennenstuhl, Barrett Carter, Phil Maffa, Marcus Tate, and Peyton Page, they're gone. They're done. As far as transfers, A.J. Hoffler, Koval, Johnson, Stellato, Trey Williams just committed to Michigan. So we're seeing guys. We're seeing guys transfer. Was it Trey Williams to Michigan? I think it was. Yeah, and I think it's A.J. Hoffler to Georgia Tech. Had to think there for a second. But they're gone. Do you realize how many people I didn't call out? That at this point, barring they transfer, what is it, in spring? That's coming back to Clemson. Antonio Williams coming back to Clemson. And then pause there. There's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys who played this year and that played this year on both sides of the football who were sophomores, true sophomores. You have guys like Khalil Barnes. And again, as I said, they could hit the portal after spring. I think that's the timeline. Y'all remind me if I'm right or wrong. I know you will. And if I'm wrong, you will tell me in the most harsh way, like I walked up and punched your baby in the face. It's like, chill, man. Shelton Lewis, Griffin, Khalil Barnes, Sammy Brown. They're back. We talked about Woods and Parker. They're back. I know I'm missing some people here and there, but Avion Terrell, back. Offensively, except for Maffa and Brennenstuhl and what was that one offensive lineman? He's back. They're all back. 4 of the 5. It's Marcus Tate. He's gone. 4 of the 5 starting offensive linemen are back. Folks, can you imagine what that line will look like next year? After it's going into a second season under Matt Luke after we saw what he did in this season? Good flipping grief. And you have Garrett Riley. This will be season number 3, unless something happens, someone comes along and hires him away. I don't see that happening right now. At the end of this season, we started to see an offense that got to rolling more. All the while, the defense was falling apart. We know that West was let go. And Clemson's yet to name who their new defensive coordinator is going to be for the 2025 season. I hope it's a good one. And I'll get to that in just a second. And no pun intended that I'm saying a good one, and we just let go of Goodwin. I said that the other day, and it was like, I didn't think about it. Let's talk about Clemson's football schedule for this year. Now, these are not in order because the conference games have not been laid out in order yet, but the non-conference games have actually been, you actually have a date for them. We have the date for that. The very first ball game of the season is Saturday, August the 30th. It's against LSU. It's going to be in Clemson. LSU hasn't won an opener in forever. And that's one of the interesting things about this season, because you're sitting there going, I mean, it sounds big. LSU's coming to town. LSU's coming to town, and we know that they're going to be a problem, and they raid the transfer portal, and you know, you've got LSU and the whole history there, and the last time Clemson played them, they got their head ripped off. But I am looking right now. The last time the LSU won a season opener was in 2019 when they won the national championship. I'm not kidding. They lost the season opener against Mississippi State. In 2021, they lost to UCLA. The past 2 years, they've lost to Florida State. Or not last 2 years. In 2022 and 2023, they lost to Florida State. And then the beginning of this year, silly me, I said Florida State. They won only 2 games this year. But anyway, I'm saying 2022 and 2023, they lost to Florida State back-to-back. And then this year, they opened up with a loss to a subpar Southern Cal team. So literally 5 years in a row, they've lost their opener. They come to Death Valley. Now, you can't assume anything off of that. But playing against LSU, to me, is a lot less intimidating than having to play the Georgia Bulldogs. Right now, where Clemson's at. The very next week, you play Troy. At the end of the season, right before you play South Carolina, you play Furman. You play at South Carolina, last game of the year, Saturday, November the 29th. Now, remember, as I said, the conference games, those dates haven't been locked down yet. So that's why I jumped from the very first game of the year to the last game of the year. First 2 weeks of the year to the last 2 weeks of the year. Here's who Clemson's playing in conference. Tell me what you notice here. At Boston College, Duke, Florida State at Clemson, SMU at Clemson, Syracuse at Clemson, Georgia Tech at Bobby Dodd, at Louisville, at North Carolina. There's a bunch of question marks there. I mean, I know right now that North Carolina seems like, well, they got Bill Belichick and this, that, and the other. Folks, I don't want to discredit Bill Belichick, but the 72-year-old coming into the college game, and his buyout is structured weird. If you haven't seen it, go look at it. He may actually never coach at North Carolina this year. He may never coach. Go look at the buyout. You'll get the rumors behind that. But coming into the college game is a lot different than the NFL. But so that's an interesting game. And I haven't looked at the starters who's coming back for all of these teams and so on. But you have at Boston College. You have Duke. You have Florida State. What will Florida State be this year? SMU coming to town. Who knows what SMU's going to be like? If my memory serves me correct, I could be wrong. They're losing a lot. What's Syracuse going to be like? At Georgia Tech, Brent Key can coach, but are they going to get over the hump? At Louisville probably is the biggest game that you can go ahead and get your big red marker out and circle it 3 times. Right now, they're about the most dominant team that I can think of right now. Again, I could be slightly overstating that because I haven't looked at the depth chart of who's coming back. I need to do that. Maybe next would be Syracuse. This is at this point, an extremely winnable schedule for the Clemson talent that's coming back. Again, if you're joining me late right now, I want to make it very clear. Basically, everyone who played this year for Clemson, almost every one of them's coming back. Except for guys like Brendan Stoll, Maffa, Mickens, Page. I think Marcus Tate was one of them. Barrett Carter. Those are the guys that are out. Of course, you had some guys who had the transfer portal. But we're talking about major players. We're talking about the Parkers. We're talking about the Woods. We're talking about Avion Terrell. We're talking about Khalil Barnes. We're talking about Sammy Brown, the true freshman. We're talking about, what's that kid's name? Ashton Hampton, I think it is. The kid that had the outrageous interception against Virginia Tech. I always mess up his name for some reason. No offense, my friend. On the offensive side, 4 of the 5 offensive linemen are coming back. Obviously, you have Cade. You have all those wide receivers. I mean, you've got your third year with Garrett Riley there. You have your second year with Matt Luke there. This should be a layup, y'all. Like I know some of y'all have been infiltrated by the soccer mom mantra, you can't win them all. Well, folks, I just looked at that schedule, and Clemson should win almost all of them. I mean, if Clemson, if they were to play in the Southern Conference tomorrow, and you adopt the mantra of you can't win them all, with that schedule, you darn well better with that talent. And when you look at this schedule, obviously it's better than the Southern Conference, but I'm just saying this schedule at this point, and we're in January right now, 5 days into the new year, Clemson has a chance to make it back to the ACC championship. Should be more than 10 wins at that point. Win the conference, go into the college football playoff, and actually make a run. Now, at the beginning of this video, I said, will 2025 Clemson win a national championship? That's on the thumbnail. And I said, I don't know, but can. I said, it depends. Here's the depends part. And I'm not talking about the adult diapers that you can buy. I am talking, heavily referencing, this move at defensive coordinator. Now, last week I started reporting on it, and I said, who's going to replace Wes? And they hadn't even announced it yet. Tiger Media the very well-known people in the Clemson community hadn't even started reporting on it yet. And then it started leaking out that Wes was already gone. No one had said anything. I remember I made the video. They're saying he's gone. Some people said this is just hearsay, and then, boom, he's gone. And I wish him the very best. The next hire, if you see Dabo Swinney hire a Matt Luke like comparable hire at defensive coordinator, can they legitimately win a national championship? That would be a definitive yes. Will they win a national championship? Obviously, that's left on the field. But can they win a national championship? Okay, let's define can. And you're like, why are we doing this? I just want you to see this. We just watched 4 teams who got the bye into the college football playoff. They got the bye. The sainted, the sacred, the desired, the coveted byes. We watched all 4 of them lose. Now, 2 of them, you wasn't really shocked that they lost. And in fact, Arizona State was the best game so far, points-wise, points difference. They lost by 8 points in the college football playoff. That's been the best game up until this point. We have the Final Four coming up for the college football playoff this week. But up to this point, remember, Arizona State only lost by 8 points. That's the closest game so far. That's sad, isn't it? It really is, considering all the big names that's played up to this point. And you saw Boise State lose by, I can't remember how many points, because like 17? I don't have the scores in front of me. But this is right off the top of my head. We saw Oregon, A team that had been number one for weeks get blistered. We saw Georgia, and I do expect more from Georgia. Because every one of you know that if Georgia would have won that game, we'd been like, oh, we're shot, you won. They went, we recruit so good at Georgia. Next man up. Go Dogs. That would have been the next thing you would have heard, and you know it. Every one of you knows it. In fact, I expected more out of Georgia. Notre Dame fans are starting to get a little cocky right now, going, we knew that this, that. No, you didn't. You didn't. You knew about as much as you did after that Northern Illinois loss. You haven't won an impressive game until you beat Georgia the other day with a second-string quarterback. And Notre Dame looked better. Notre Dame actually looked pretty doggone good. First time all season, in my opinion. And yes, I watched some Notre Dame football, and I watched almost the entire Georgia game. You're like, why are you running me through this? Because there's all four of those teams that got a bye lost. Ohio State stepped up majorly. Penn State, they've stepped up pretty well. Notre Dame, I just talked about, they stepped up. Texas looks like they're hobbling. Texas looks like the weakest one out of all four of them. And I'm not knocking you Longhorns. I'm just being honest. And the irony is that they're newbies to the SEC. And they're the only SEC team in this darn thing. What does this have to do with Clemson and next year? By the talent that Clemson has right now, they can legitimately compete for a national championship next year, and they don't need someone to mess up in a football game so they can get in and then have a false sense of accomplishment. Yeah, I know some of you don't like that. That's totally fine. You have enough media outlets that tells you that you're right. I'm one of the few that tells you I disagree with you. Clemson got lucky this year. You still lost by 2 touchdowns in the college football playoff. But you go out and you hire an incredible defensive coordinator. Someone who is like Matt Luke, but they're a defensive coordinator. Can Clemson legitimately win a national championship next year as long as Garrett Riley doesn't go back to his shell? He keeps things rolling. I answer emphatically, absolutely. They can legitimately be a national championship contender. Let's give you the flip side of this, and this is where I lose some of you. Here's the not pessimistic, this is the realistic side. If they come out next year and they lose 4 games with this schedule, there's a problem in Clemson, South Carolina. With this talent, most of all this talent, they lose 4 games next year. Major problem in Clemson, South Carolina. Because you have a bunch of juniors and seniors. You have a third-year offensive coordinator. You have second year with Matt Luke. My question is, who did you hire at defensive coordinator? Pee Wee Herman? There's a lot of things working in Clemson's favor for this upcoming season. On the field, schedule-wise, and potentially on the sideline. We will see how that pans out. And most of all, what happens on the sideline. Mark my word, today, January the 5th, 2025, that would really decide what goes on this year. Can they win a national championship with the talent and the schedule? Abso-flippin-lutely. Folks, get to the comment section real quick. Going to fly through this. Roger Parks, good to see you, my friend. Good to see you, my friend Roger Parks. Oh, man, who else is in here? Got Austin Garrett, Tiger fan. Joseph Dorff, Cosmic Tactics. Walkhart KT, good to see you, my friend. Chase Johnson. Got Joe Starks in here. Shane, Louis Papp. Got B in here. Lander Josh. Got Shane Whitted, I believe that's the name. Ray L.A., good to see all of you in here. Kevin, good to see you, my friend. Go Tigers is in here. Tiger Fan 24. Good to see you, my friend. 864 FB. Got Tiger Man, old buddy in here. Good to see you, my friend. Justin Parrott. Good to see you. Willis. Bunch of you in here. I'm probably overlooking some of you. Don't mean to. J-Day, Papa Smurth. Good to see all of y'all in here. Y'all take care of yourself. If you haven't subscribed, before you go, listen, before you go, my analytics tells me that still probably about at least half of everyone who watched me still hasn't subscribed. It's a button that all you have to do is click, and it's free. If you like what I'm doing, you like talking college football, I hope you'll hit the subscribe button. and I do appreciate it. Over 7,000 of you already have, and it means a lot to me. Y'all take care of yourself, and as always, go Tigers.